Well, good morning, everybody. In today's forecast video, as we walk through the near-term pattern, which features multiple days of severe weather coming to the Central Plains, plus some critical rains at the start here of this growing season, I just want to let you know at the end of this video, I'm going to pause a bit on the analog analysis. I was working on something a bit new with it, and I think I want a couple more days to think this through before I show it to you. So we'll likely get it out to you on Friday, if not Friday, on Monday, kind of this final wrap-up of the analog thought process for this upcoming summer. But still, I have some important stuff at the end today about both South America and the May forecast pattern. So the map you've been looking at here shows you this morning's all hazards. And the primary reason I want to show you this was because of the frost risk we were still seeing across parts of the eastern United States. You can still see kind of our last day with this current setup of the cold air that's coming through here. But you're going to see another low that sneaks through this area, dropping temperatures once again later on this week. That low, if you look on satellite this morning, is sitting right here. So we're going to see this come through on the back side, drop in a little bit of chilly air. But I thought it was kind of neat to take a look here this morning at sunrise across the East Coast and then just rewind the clock to last night. So as we watch this low come through, this is about the only show in town right now, and it's relatively weak. It does have a stalled out frontal boundary here and much higher pressure building in on the back side of it. The winds are going to calm down kind of on a national stage today compared to where they have been as of late, but we're going to be waiting for the next combination of systems that's lurking off the coast to get here soon. I did find it interesting as I was kind of just watching this satellite imagery to kind of zoom in here on the southeast, because this morning as the sun is rising, it's really always neat to watch. You see the kind of little stripes of gray that are in here. These are some of the fogs in the valleys that are in the river systems in parts of the southeast. So I always like to see that. But yesterday, just taking you back here, we can see some of the prescribed burns that were going on both in Florida and, well, I guess in Florida, Georgia, parts of Alabama, and Mississippi as well. In fact, something just caught my attention. Okay, I was just taking a look at some of these high, thin clouds here over parts of Tennessee. All right, from there, let's kind of get ourselves oriented here with this pattern. The last 7 days, we had about 1,000 reports of severe weather, active go of it here in terms of spring severe weather. I just wanted to hone in on some of the areas that have been quite wet and other areas that have missed out a lot on this precipitation. So just take a good snapshot of this map. A couple of areas I want to point out, okay, coming out of Montana into the northern plains, here in this kind of south central plains region where storms were streaky going through here but missed several locations. Then take a look over here at parts of North Carolina into Virginia through the mid-Atlantic. This will be an area to be watching carefully as well, as is the southern part of Florida. Now, for the west to go over drier this time of year is a good thing overall. We're looking for the return of consistent dry weather and heat so that we can have, successful crop growing here. We're going to talk about that more in a few moments as well. But if we stretch this back over the last 2 weeks, now this is through yesterday morning, so it's always a one-day lag on these maps. This really kind of throws into contrast those areas we've been talking about. So while we've had some places here approaching 1,000% of normal precipitation, my color brown line goes up to 325, and anything over that, I just make the darkest blue. I've actually got a new set of maps coming for you that'll be much more easier to diagnose where those really, really heavy events have been. But as you look at this, find those places. Look, Montana, this section of the Central Plains, which we focused on a lot, down here in the southern tip of Florida, and then take note right into this part of North Carolina, getting into Virginia, and up toward the mid-Atlantic here. And I point this out because on the most recent drought monitor that was just released, that was an area that did see some expansion. So we saw expansion in the drought here and expansion in the drought in parts of Nebraska and Kansas and Oklahoma. And overall right now, if you just kind of look at where we stand on drought, we're about 18% covered in D1 to D4 drought. But if you do get a chance to play around with this site, go click on the Ag and Drought tab, and you can start to look at things like this. I've chosen the row crops tab, and you can see which crop is affected by drought and by how much. So for example, across our cotton belt, we've got 9%, corn belt 23%. Nationally, we're at about 18% covered in D1 to D4 drought. So I find this to be a very useful website here. Again, just on the main drought monitor website, just click on Ag and Drought, and you can see a lot of these numbers, which just, I think, really convey where we currently stand in terms of our, longer term drought stresses. So please check that out. Okay, I wanted to also check in again on rivers. I'm only showing those that are in the action, minor, moderate, and major flood stages. So I'm now trying to assess those spots that have been really, really wet and where we're having a lot of river flooding. And you can see there is some coastal flooding issues going on here in parts of Virginia, Maryland, getting up toward Delaware and New Jersey. But it's important to note how dry we've been into the interior. Outside of that, take a look here into parts like the Wabash River, the Ohio River, parts of the Illinois River, and then as we come down the Mississippi, get down here to all of the river systems that feed into the lower part of the Delta. Quite a lot of flooding going on in this area as well. Same thing for this part of Florida. Checking in specifically on the Mississippi River, it's about 22 feet above low stage. So that is, when you kind of compare it to a year ago, looking pretty good overall. But don't forget, a year ago, starting at it started on May 10th. That's when the rain shut off. We went from here to there. That was the really, really dry spring that we endured last May and June for the whole of the Mississippi Basin. Not anticipating that this year. There's not a lot of indications for it, and we'll make a point for that in a few moments. Okay, early this morning, just kind of taking a good look at the radar. Scattered showers moving through parts of Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, Illinois. This is all linked up with the frontal boundary that curls through Indiana and Michigan and wraps up into a low that's sitting somewhere over Lake Superior. We're going to watch that low kind of, I guess word is like peacefully move off to the east, and then what follows it is going to really set us up with quite a bit of severe weather. And before I show you that, I thought I'd get you up to date on the current counts. Looking at hail first, we've had almost 1,200 reports of hail. 1,400 would be the average, but we'll likely be pushing these numbers up in this next 7-day time period. On tornadoes, we are just about 350, normally about 400. I say normal just looking at the climatological averages here. And so again, we're tracking close to average, just a hair below normal, but we're expecting again the end of April and May to be an extremely active set of days here for severe weather. If we look at the wind reports, that is the one category we're ahead on. We're at nearly, we're at 2,176 reports. Average would be about 1,850. So you can kind of see that we're really tracking ahead on these wind reports. And speaking of winds, these are the regions we're watching for in the upper levels of the atmosphere. Unlike a week ago where the trough that was to the north, this one here, and the one that was to the south here, remain decoupled across the United States. These two are going to be working together. And what's going to be interesting about the way this pattern sets up is how each of the next several systems comes in and shoots straight, some direction like this. Remember, a week ago, we got a low because of the decoupled nature of it to just slide across the south. I guess that was 2 weeks ago in that, kind of region of the Cotton Belt, which helped deliver some of the recent very, very heavy rains in it. That's not the case with the next setup here. So let me show it to you. Here's that one trough. Here's the other. And this is the lead wave, the weaker one that's moving through, that's not producing the severe weather. It doesn't have the antecedent buildup of warm, unstable air. So it's just moving through, producing some light rain as it presses on east. So there that one goes through, taking the temperatures cooler with it. I'll show you those in a few moments. But here we are, looking at Thursday morning. And just watch the interaction between this trough and this one. Because by the time we get into Thursday night, this is ejecting over parts of Arizona and New Mexico. Ridge out ahead of it is indicative of the warmth and the moisture that's pulling into this area. And what we're going to do is watch out for the severe weather threat right along the leading edge of this trough. But the trough on the back side of it is broad enough and large enough that it does not let go of this. These are connected, all right? And as a result, it's going to help send this trough straight north while the next one digs into the south behind it. So here we are Friday night getting into Saturday, and then that one ejects into the plains as well, meaning that getting into Saturday and then eventually into Sunday, we're going to watch the second trough lift in the same direction. So you saw it. One came from here and did this. The second one came from here and did that. And let's see where this third one's going to go starting on Monday. It dips into the northwest and slides west. And the ensembles, just because of the typical way by which we average so many different forecasts, just leave this broader setup like this across the atmosphere. And we're going to take a look at the AIFS system, which I think has been the best in terms of seeing out there past day 10 with more detailed features. We're going to look at that in a few moments here. The overall setup with this pattern is one where we just have southwest flow, and that's been kind of a narrative we've been carrying for a while. So the net effect of it is this. Where these systems enter the northwest, we're wetter. We're wetter along the spine of the Rockies, and some of this is snow. Where these systems eject, there will be a daily attempt to figure out where the dry line is going to be. And if you're on the wet side of it, we're just going to watch storms kind of ripping through this area as we go forward. Because each low pulls to the north like this, broader area through the upper Midwest northern plains, it's wet. And as you noticed, that track does not drag things toward the east. So this is why a big section of the southeast, parts of the Ohio Valley, getting into the northeast, in the Mid-Atlantic, are showing up on the drier side of average. That doesn't mean dry, like nothing, but it means that we could be getting through this time period with very little rainfall. Now, there are some folks that are fine. They're like, give me 2 weeks of dry weather so that I can get this crop going. But this is going to be a problem in a few of those isolated areas we discussed that have been missing out on precip. So from there, let's go have a look at the Storm Prediction Center's updates today. This is where our thunderstorm risk is. We have a marginal risk in parts of Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, and Michigan, and a slight risk down here in parts of Texas. As we play forward into tomorrow, this is going to be the quarter we watch open up on the 24th, but it'll be on the 25th that we get our first large slight risk. Again, the position of that dry line and how far back to the west we're able to drag the moisture will be critical. It'll be something we'll nowcast the day of the event. Understand, I won't be able to tell you with certainty where those storms are going to pop off just yet. So this is on the 25th. If we get out there to day 4, all right, so now we're looking at Friday night, we see this large corridor for the risk of severe storms. Day 5, oops, sorry about that. There's day 5, shows up here again, and day 6. So this is what happens when upper level lows kind of orbit one another before ejecting into the plains. And notice that we're not watching this press into the southeast. A lot of this is staying in the central United States, which has kind of been the area we targeted early in the season for, I think, the greatest risk of a lot of these early season severe weather events. It's not so much in the southeast, but much more, in this corridor. And so that's kind of playing out, well with some of the earlier thoughts we had. All right, let's now get into the models. Let's watch the first system sneak through. So playing through the middle of the day today, broad area of showers stretching from lower Michigan here all the way back to Missouri. So that's through this afternoon and this evening. We then play this through into early morning hours as it spreads into the northeast. The frontal boundary stretches right over that drier part of the mid-Atlantic, comes back over here to the Blue Ridge Mountains. But then as the high pressure builds in behind this, I'll show you those temps in a few minutes. We get into Wednesday afternoon and evening. Don't be surprised if in the interior there's a little bit of light snow in the northeast. But as the high pressure slides east, it's going to open up for the advection of moisture back into this region. So this is now early in the morning on Thursday. And we're just going to keep an eye as the day progresses through Thursday, right in through this corridor. Now, the high-res NAM only runs 60 hours. And by the time I record these in the morning, I only have the 6Z run in. So that's why we only get out to 1 o'clock on Thursday afternoon Central Time. But it is important to note we're putting the squeeze on the atmosphere right here on the backside of this high pressure. See it right there? There's the high pressure. So we could get a little bit of rain into parts of Missouri, Arkansas, and western Tennessee out of this. But that's the deeper low. The other one is sneaking through the Four Corner states. And so to see where that goes, we got to switch models to get to those longer range ones. How about a quick recap of what they're suggesting? The artificial intelligence forecasting model went wetter. It went wetter in this area by quite a bit compared to yesterday's run. Now, let's compare that to the WPC. Now, I apologize. The WPC still has not fixed their page. Can you see up here? They're still not giving me the old grid files that I need to make my maps, but they apparently have got some sort of internal way of making their maps because they're making them. I just like to compare them all on my same color bar. But this is the WPC forecast for the next 7 days. Again, we have our drier regions. Let's go from here to the national blend of models. So this actually takes into account every model I show you, but the National Weather Service does a proprietary blend on them to see where they're expecting precipitation. And overall, there's a pretty large area in through here that has a chance at grabbing well over an inch of rain out of this pattern setting up just in the next 7 days alone. From there, the European model 7-day forecast, and from there, the GFS. And if we compare just the euro to the GFS, I just make a map of that. These colors represent where the GFS is the wetter model, and these represent where the euro is. So down here where we've already had a lot of flooding rain, the European is saying, bring on more of it. Right through this stripe in here, if you remember back, where did I put that map? There. That little area which has been drier over the last couple of weeks, which has chances of rain today. But then again, take a look. Where was that map? There we go. The GFS is really trying to deliver into that area as well. Notice that it's the European model that's wetter farther to the west in the driest pockets of Kansas. So I just wanted to point those differences out to us. Now a little model comparison. GFS left, European right. We're going to start off at 1 o'clock today on Tuesday. So we've already seen system number 1 move through the northeast. Maybe some snow, look at that, in Maine and parts of the Canadian Maritimes. There's the frontal boundary, kind of putting that squeeze right there between the high pressure and the new low pressure that's forming on Thursday. But the bigger show will be the deeper trough here and the one that's coming out here in Arizona and New Mexico. So there it is. So Thursday night, watch the plains right in through here. Okay. As we get into Friday, that low lifts, spreading widespread rain here, and a frontal boundary that drapes to the south for severe storms in this area. Saturday, the second low is already moving through the west, and it digs out there. In both models, very similar timing. We're going to watch for severe storms in this area Saturday night. As we then work our way through Sunday, that low pulls over the Great Lakes and leaves a lingering frontal boundary here on Sunday night. And that's our last kind of go of severe weather with this. So that's 5 straight days for the risk of severe storms. Now that low presses east, but notice how large the high pressure cell is here, preventing this rain from getting into the southeast. So this front kind of loses its steam. Doesn't just swipe through the east with a lot of rain. Just note though that as we get out there more than a week from now, so this is next Wednesday, Thursday, can you see what's coming out of the west? There's still that southwest jet stream flow keeping things going. So if we look at it in terms of probabilities, here's the chance getting added up over time of grabbing an inch. So already by Thursday into Friday, this area is starting to see higher probabilities of grabbing an inch. Add the systems following it and take this out 10 days. This is the European model solution on at least an inch of precipitation. Again, drier, drier, drier. The Pacific Northwest getting a lot of extra rain here out of this trough that's coming in, or the 2 troughs that are coming in over the next 10 days as well. From there, I would like to show you that there is snow in this setup. According to the European model, got to be careful here. Might see a little bit of light snow, parts of northern Minnesota, and along the spine of the Rockies, and even some of the Cascades and Sierra Nevadas and into the Intermountain West could pick up a little bit of snow as well. All right, what about week 2? So it's interesting to see the models struggling a bit with the week 2 pattern. For me, I would say just use persistence as your guide once you get out there past day 10. I don't see anything breaking down or changing that would tell me to put up the red flag and say, no, new pattern coming right away as we get past the first couple of days of May. But I do want to show you that the CPC yesterday suggested that May 1st through the 3rd is going to have a risk in this area of, again, moderate risk of heavy precipitation. And having a look at that, I think what they're seeing here is shown well in the artificial intelligence model. We just don't stop this, trough action coming in like this or slipping through like this and then southwest flowing across the country. Sorry, those are some ugly arrows there, but you kind of get the idea. And we do need to watch out should that system evolve there on May 3rd, May 4th. That would be well timed with a historically very active time period for the Central Plains of the United States. All right, so just switching gears here and talking about temperatures. This is the next 7 days of where I have frost risk. Again, a lot of this is this morning, but behind it we have a shot at some colder air, and I want to show it to you on the min temperatures. So this was the forecast for this morning. Tomorrow morning, behind that low, there's your frost line. Getting into Thursday morning, it's right in through here. Now after that, the warm sector opens ahead of this very active end of the week time period, and the temperatures, overnight lows jump 30 degrees in parts of the country here. So that's Saturday, getting into Sunday and Monday. If you look out there at the high temperatures, whoops, already ahead of you here. There we go. That's Tuesday. Getting into Wednesday, there's the cold air locked around the Great Lakes toward the northeast. Look at the heat coming back into Montana. I mean, wasn't it just, it was a week ago. Yeah, a week ago right now. Is that right? A week ago right now, we had single-digit lows in Montana. And now we're back up in the 70s by Wednesday. So welcome to Montana. Cold air sliding back into the west again. You can see the warm sector staying open. I did notice that in this new pattern, we're not really staying with the above average temperatures across the north, which is going to slow down the accumulation of heat there. But the fact that California is not breaking over, nor is the Northwest breaking over to accumulating a lot of additional heat, just continues where we've been for the last month. This is temperature ranks by the last month, all right? And you can see a lot of areas in the central and western half of the U.S. have really shown that they're in the lower half of the distribution while it's been quite warm through the Ohio River Valley toward the Appalachian Mountains. Okay, day 5 through 10. See this? Just keeping that cooler air around here in the GFS, but once we get out there, day 10 through 15, the models are going over more mild. The European is the warmer model. So that's day 5 through 10 of the European, and this is day 10 through 15. And so the cooler conditions staying west, much more mild here. This just tells me that the pattern is dipping west and throwing troughs on southwest flow through the midsection of the country. And I bring that up and make that an important point because of this. If the central United States, where I know I have a lot of viewers, was going to go over cold, like really cold in May, and bring us more late frost risks, it takes a trio of events. It takes deep low pressure over the Aleutian Islands in the Bering Sea. It takes deep low pressure here south of the Hudson Bay toward the Hudson River. And it takes a large blocking ridge pushing toward Greenland. So if I were going to be concerned about the central United States taking on the cold that California has right now, it would require a complete shift of this pattern by about 2,000 miles. Because what we've got is we've had troughs that have snuck in here and ridges that keep building into this area. And the North Atlantic isn't getting blocked up with a large ridge. It's been more transient. It's been farther out in the Atlantic. So when you look out there, watch this. This is top-down view, 7-day sliding window of upper air heights. So you see we're dipping here, ridging there, and this trough would have to be anchored right in this area and much deeper for me to say May is going to come in cold. And I just don't see it. In fact, what I see is a lot of southwest flow in May. And that's why if we zip in here to the United States, flip this over to precipitation, look at a 30-day outlook and stretch it out there. There we are. We end up getting something like this. Quite stormy in this area. And I think that's going to be the stay of it. I think the plains Midwest feature the most severe weather. But seeing this makes me question a lot of those longer range forecasts that want to keep the southeast so wet and the east coast so wet so long into the season. It is important to note that the newest European run does try to bring in rain to those drier parts of the Carolinas and Virginia over the next 30 days. All right. From here, I want to finish with this. Since we're going to push our longer range discussion off, we've been doing it just nonstop for the last several weeks. Let's reset here and think about it. I need just time to step away and come back. That's always good when you're assessing a problem. All right, I do want to show you what the government is showing about their seasonal drought outlook through July 31st. So take note of the color bar down here. Drought remains but improves. We have a lot of that. Drought removal likely. You can see that in some of these areas. But you also notice where they're expecting drought to continue to develop. And we've got big question marks about Kansas. And the next 7 to 8 days are going to be able to tell us a story about whether or not moisture can return to Kansas. And so we'll keep a close eye on that. From here, though, I'm going to flip the hemispheres and head down to South America. And let's talk about this Safrinha crop. So what I'm showing you here is second season corn production, and you're kind of looking at it by state and municipality. And as we just kind of hone in on here, we can see that, 45% of the crop is Mato Grosso. If you add in Goiás, Mato Grosso do Sul, and Paraná, that's about all of it. And as you look, we're going to see temperatures really shooting up in that area. Now remember, it is autumn, it's fall, but it's still looking to be quite a bit warmer than average. And what this is going to do is increase evaporation rates. And at the same time, if you just watch the animation of total precipitation from the European model, this is a 10-day forecast. we're expecting for most of the next 7 or 8 days all of the wettest weather to be down south of Santa Catarina into Rio Grande do Sul, Paraná, and most of the Paraná River Basin, Paraguay, and most of the Paraná River Basin, including a big chunk of Argentina. But Paraná, this is Sao Paulo, this is Minas Gerais, Goiás, Tocantins, Mato Grosso do Sul. There's a large donut on the screen here representing an early shutdown of the monsoon. This has got to be watched and discussed, and we need to get reports out of Brazil to understand if this is of concern given the heat and what it might mean in terms of Safrinha crop production. So watch it carefully, and we'll just see if we get any sort of reaction out of it. I appreciate all your attention this week. I'm heading off to Virginia now, so I will catch you guys tomorrow morning in Charlottesville. So have a good one. Thanks.